Welcome back to our channel History Coins HD. As you that old as gold, but these rare Kennedy half-dollar coin that are most valuable than you think, don't spend one of them. You're lucky if you have one of these, so please watch complete video and find your treasure. Let's start this. Top 1, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of the 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half-dollar. You might be thinking, wait a minute, I've seen these before, haven't I? And yes, you're not wrong. Millions of these coins were minted as part of America's bicentennial celebration. But what if I told you, not all of them are created equal? What if I told you there's a version of this coin out there that could make your jaw drop, not just because of its beauty or history, but because of how much it's worth today? Let's take a step back and set the stage. The year was 1976. The United States was preparing to celebrate 200 years of independence. Across the country, there were parades, fireworks, and tributes to the Founding Fathers. And as part of this grand celebration, the U.S. Mint released a special set of coins, including the Kennedy half-dollar, redesigned just for this occasion. Now, the Kennedy half-dollar itself was already a powerful tribute. First minted in 1964 following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, this coin was meant to honor a man whose vision for America inspired a generation. The 1776 to 1976 edition was especially meaningful because it didn't just honor Kennedy, it also commemorated the very founding of the nation he served. On the front, or obverse, of the coin, you'll still find the iconic profile of President Kennedy, strong, determined, hopeful. It's a design that feels timeless, even today. But the reverse is where things get really interesting. Instead of the usual presidential seal, the back features a beautifully detailed image of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, the very place where the Declaration of Independence was debated and adopted. Above it, the words 200 Years of Freedom. Below, the dates, 1776 to 1976. It's not just a coin, it's a piece of art, a piece of history, and for some people, it's a hidden fortune. You see, while millions of these coins were minted in copper nickel for everyday use, a small number were produced in silver, and even fewer were struck with special minting techniques, proof and uncirculated versions intended for collectors. And among those, there are some extremely rare variants, coins with minting errors, or ones struck with extraordinary detail and preserved in flawless condition. These are the coins that collectors dream about. They're hidden in old collections, tucked away in forgotten drawers, or buried in coin jars across America, waiting to be discovered. But how can you tell if you have one of these special Kennedy half-dollars? Start by checking the edge of the coin. If you see a shiny silver stripe instead of a copper core, that's your first clue. It could be a 40% silver version, which already makes it more valuable than the average coin. Then look at the mint mark. Coins from San Francisco with an S are often proof or silver issues. And finally, examine the condition. A coin with no scratches, no dulling, and sharp, crisp details could be worth far more than you think. And here's where things get really exciting. There are known examples of this bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar coins from 1776 to 1976 that have sold for mind-blowing prices at auction. These aren't your everyday pocket change. These are coins that have been graded as nearly perfect by professional grading services. Some have ultra-rare features, like double die errors, or were struck using special dies that were quickly retired. In one unforgettable case, a nearly flawless silver Kennedy half-dollar from this exact bicentennial series, featuring incredible detail and a stunning mirror-like finish, was sold to an enthusiastic collector. The price, get ready for this, was $78,000. Yes, you heard that right. A single half-dollar coin, worth $78,000. Imagine finding that in your coin jar. Imagine flipping through an old collection and realizing you've been holding onto a small fortune this whole time. That's the magic of coin collecting. That's the power of history hidden in plain sight. So, if you have a Kennedy half-dollar dated 1776 to 1976, now is the time to take a closer look. Check the edges, look for silver, inspect the condition, and maybe even get it appraised. You never know, you might be sitting on one of the rarest treasures in American numismatic history. Top 2, everyone. If you've ever searched through a handful of old coins or emptied a dusty drawer filled with change, you might want to take a second look, because what may seem like an ordinary coin could actually be hiding a jaw-dropping secret. We're turning the spotlight onto a coin that many people have overlooked for years. It's not flashy. It doesn't scream for attention. But among collectors, it's gaining fame as one of the most sought-after treasures in American numismatics. I'm talking about the 1971 D Kennedy half dollar. And now, at first glance, this coin might look pretty standard. Maybe you've seen one. Maybe you've even used one to buy a snack or tossed it into a coin jar without a second thought. But here's the thing, some versions of this coin are far from ordinary. In fact, one particular type of this coin has shocked the collecting world with its value, history, and rarity. So, let's go back to where it all began. The Kennedy half dollar was first introduced in 1964, just months after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The United States Mint quickly moved to honor his memory with a coin bearing his portrait. Americans responded with emotion and admiration, and the Kennedy half dollar became an instant symbol of a nation's respect. Fast forward to 1971. The Mint had made some changes by then. This was the first year that the half dollar would no longer be struck in silver, not even partially. From this point on, the coins were made of a copper-nickel clad composition. The silver era had ended, and the 1971 issues marked the beginning of a new chapter. And now, this is where it gets interesting. Most 1971 D Kennedy half dollars were produced at the Denver Mint, and yes, millions were made. These were coins intended for everyday use. But once in a while, something unexpected happens during the minting process. A rare mistake. A surprising variation. A coin unlike the rest. That's exactly what happened with a very small number of these 1971 D half dollars. You see, although the official records show that number 1971 half dollars were made with silver, some rare specimens were mistakenly struck on leftover silver planchets, metal blanks left over from the previous years. These coins were never supposed to exist. They were never intended to be released. And yet, somehow, a handful of them slipped through the cracks and ended up in circulation. Imagine holding what looks like a regular half dollar, only to discover it's actually struck on a 40% silver planchet, a metal that was supposedly retired from production the year before. That's not just rare. That's a minting miracle, but how can you tell the difference? Start with the weight. A standard 1971 D copper nickel half dollar weighs about 11.34 grams. But the rare silver error coin? That one comes in at about 11.50 grams. It's a subtle difference, but for a trained eye or a precise scale, it's the first sign you've got something special. Then, there's the sound. Silver coins have a higher pitched ring compared to the duller clink of copper nickel. And finally, the edge. If you look closely at the coin's edge and don't see the usual copper stripe, but instead a solid silver color all the way around, you might want to take that coin very seriously. But that's not all. In addition to these silver planchet errors, some collectors have discovered 1971 D half dollars with extraordinary die errors, double strikes, off-center imprints, or other flaws that make them truly one of a kind. These minting mistakes, combined with pristine condition and rarity, send collectors into a frenzy. And now, let's talk about value. Most 1971 D Kennedy half dollars are worth their face value, 50 cents. Maybe a little more if they're in excellent condition. But the rare ones? The error coins? The silver planchet strikes, that's where things go from ordinary to unbelievable. One extraordinary 1971 D Kennedy half dollar, struck on a silver planchet, was professionally authenticated and preserved in immaculate condition. When it appeared at auction, collectors knew it was special, but no one expected what happened next. The final hammer price stunned the crowd. That single coin, that rare and nearly mythical piece of American minting history, sold for a staggering amount. It was $82,000, yes. You heard that correctly. $82,000, for a coin most people wouldn't look at twice. That's the magic of numismatics. That's why coin hunting is more than a hobby, it's a treasure hunt. And the treasure might be sitting in your drawer right now. So here's what you should do next. If you have any Kennedy half dollars from 1971, especially those with the D mint mark, pull them out. Weigh them. Examine them. You might just discover that you've been holding a piece of American history and a fortune. Top 3. We're talking about the mysterious and highly valuable 1992 P Kennedy half dollar. And now, most people don't pay much attention to half dollars anymore. They're not commonly used in everyday transactions, and they often go unnoticed in change. But among collectors, the Kennedy half dollar series is filled with fascinating surprises, especially the ones from the early 1990s. So, what makes the 1992 P special? Let's start with a little history. By the early 90s, the Kennedy half dollar had been in circulation for nearly 3 decades. It was first introduced in 1964 as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy, following his tragic assassination in 1963. Americans embraced the coin with deep emotion, and it became a symbol of hope, unity, and remembrance. Fast forward to 1992. The U.S. Mint was continuing production of Kennedy half dollars for circulation, and that year, something new happened. They introduced special silver-proof versions of the coin for collectors. These were made with 90% silver and featured a brilliant mirror-like finish. But here's the twist: while the silver-proof versions were clearly intended for collectors, a tiny number of 1992 Kennedy half dollars struck in Philadelphia with a regular P Mint mark were accidentally struck on those silver planchets meant for proof coins. That's right, some 1992 P half dollars, which were supposed to be made of the standard copper-nickel clad composition, were mistakenly struck in solid silver. Think about that for a moment. A coin that was supposed to be made for circulation, struck in the wrong metal, and released into the wild. No fanfare. No announcement. Just quietly mixed in with the rest, waiting to be discovered. This kind of error is what collectors dream about. It's called a wrong planchet error, and it's incredibly rare, especially in modern coins, where minting processes are closely monitored. But sometimes, just sometimes, even the strictest systems let a few mistakes slip through. And now imagine this: you're going through your collection or sifting through old rolls of coins, and you come across a 1992 Kennedy half dollar with a P Mint mark. It looks normal at first glance, but then you notice something different. It feels heavier. It has a cleaner, shinier edge. You test the weight, and instead of the usual 11.34 grams, it comes in closer to 12.5. That's your first clue, and then, you look at the edge. No copper line. Just a solid silver color running all the way around. Congratulations! You may have just stumbled upon one of the most valuable Kennedy half dollar errors ever struck. Of course, confirmation requires professional grading. Experts will test the metal composition, check for authenticity, and grade the coin's condition. Coins in pristine, uncirculated, or proof-like condition are worth significantly more, especially when paired with a rare minting error like this one. But it gets even better, because only a handful of these silver 1992 P error coins have ever been verified. That means they're not just rare, they're ultra-rare. Scarcity, historical context, and uniqueness all come together to create something truly special. And that combination? It drives collectors wild. So, what's a coin like this really worth? Most 1992 P Kennedy half dollars are worth, at most, a few dollars in brilliant uncirculated condition. But these silver planchet errors, they're in a completely different league. In fact, one of these incredibly rare 1992 P silver error coins was sold at auction to a serious collector, someone who understood the significance of owning a piece of modern minting history. The coin was carefully authenticated, perfectly preserved, and recognized as one of the rarest known errors of its kind, and the final sale price, it was $60,000. Yes, you heard that right, $60,000, for a coin from 1992 that could easily go unnoticed in a jar of change. So the next time you're going through your coins, pay attention. Look closely. Weigh your half dollars. Examine their edges. Because you never know when a seemingly ordinary coin could turn out to be something extraordinary, and that's the thrill of it, isn't it? That moment of discovery. That rush of excitement when you realize you're holding a piece of history, and maybe even a small fortune. Top 4. We're about to dive into a coin that, on the surface, seems like nothing more than a common piece of pocket change. You've probably seen it before. Maybe you've spent one. Maybe you even have a few sitting in a drawer somewhere, gathering dust. But what if I told you, one of those coins could actually be worth a life-changing amount of money? We're going deep into the fascinating story of the 1981 P Kennedy half dollar, a coin that many collectors have overlooked, but one that holds a surprising and mysterious secret. And if you stay with me until the end, you'll find out exactly why this ordinary-looking coin has sold for an extraordinary amount at auction. Now, let's rewind the clock to 1981. That time, the United States Mint was still producing Kennedy half dollars regularly, though their presence in circulation had started to fade. Most people weren't using them in everyday transactions anymore, but the Mint kept striking them for collectors and special orders from banks. The Kennedy half dollar itself, of course, was introduced back in 1964 as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy after his tragic assassination. The coin quickly became a national symbol of honor, hope, and remembrance. Over the decades, it has remained a favorite among coin collectors not just for its historical significance, but also for the many rare and valuable variations that have emerged over the years. The 1981 Kennedy half dollar came in three primary forms: coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint, with a P mint mark, coins from the Denver Mint, with a D, and special proof coins made in San Francisco, with an S. Now here's where things get interesting: the Philadelphia Mint version, the 1981 P. Kennedy half dollar, was minted in relatively large numbers. But what makes some of these coins so incredibly rare isn't just the mint mark, or even the year. It's a combination of error, timing, and condition. In 1981, the mint was preparing for a shift. After that year, Kennedy half dollars would no longer be minted for general circulation until 1996. That means the 1981 coins were the last of their kind for 15 years. That fact alone adds a layer of historical significance, but there's more. Some of the 1981 P. Kennedy half dollars were struck using proof dies meant for high-end collector coins, but somehow ended up on the production floor in Philadelphia, where business strikes were being made. What does that mean? It means a few coins were produced with unusually sharp, deep, and mirror-like details, proof-like quality on a circulation coin. An extremely rare occurrence, even more fascinating? A handful of these coins were struck on the wrong planchets, metal blanks not intended for half dollars. These mistakes are known as planchet errors, and they're highly sought after by collectors because they represent freak accidents in the minting process, and as always, condition matters. Coins that escaped scratches, dents, and wear, those that were never circulated or were preserved in near-perfect shape, are considered the holy grail. When a rare error coin also happens to be in pristine condition, it's like lightning striking twice. So let's recap for a second. We have a coin that was part of the final regular issue for over a decade. We have extremely rare minting errors, including proof-like strikes and planchet mistakes. We have immaculate condition. Combine all of that, and what do you get? You get a coin that has stunned the numismatic world. In fact, one of these rare 1981 P. Kennedy half dollars, authenticated by experts, graded in exceptional condition, and confirmed to have a minting error, was put up for auction. And what happened next? Well, let's just say the bidding didn't stay low for long. Collectors recognized how rare it truly was. The history, the beauty, the error, the mystery of how such a coin even made it out of the mint. It all came together to drive the value sky high, and when the final bid was placed, the coin sold for a staggering amount. That one humble half dollar, dated 1981, bearing the P mint mark, and featuring a minting error most people wouldn't even notice, sold for $68,000. Yes, you heard that right. $68,000. For a coin that could have been sitting in someone's junk drawer or tossed into a coin jar decades ago. This is why coin hunting never gets old. It's not just about collecting, it's about discovering pieces of history, understanding the stories behind them, and maybe, just maybe, finding that one in a million coin that turns out to be worth a fortune. So if you have any 1981 Kennedy half dollars lying around, especially ones from Philadelphia, go take a closer look. Check for any unusual features. Weigh them. Examine the details. If anything looks even slightly out of the ordinary, it might just be worth getting it professionally appraised, because the next big discovery? It might be in your own hands. Top 5 where coins aren't just coins, they're stories, secrets, and sometimes, surprises worth thousands. Today's episode is one that might just have you running to your old coin jars, diving into your collection, or even calling up your grandparents to see what they've been holding onto, because today, we're talking about a coin that looks like your everyday pocket change, but behind its simple appearance lies one of the most unexpected treasures in modern American coin history. That's right, we're diving deep into the 1998 P. Kennedy half dollar. And trust me, by the time you hear the full story, you'll never look at one the same way again. Let's begin with the basics. The Kennedy half dollar has been a part of American coinage since 1964, created as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy after his assassination. Over the years, it has remained a staple of U.S. coin design, bold, symbolic, and filled with history. But as the decades passed, it became more of a collector's coin than an everyday currency. By the late 90s, Kennedy half dollars were barely being used in everyday purchases, yet the mint continued to produce them, primarily for collectors and special rolls ordered by banks. In 1998, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 20 million Kennedy half dollars. That number sounds high, right? And you're probably wondering, how could something minted in such large quantities be rare? Well, here's where things take a turn. While most 1998 p half dollars were completely standard and made of copper nickel, there were very few that turned out different. Due to rare and unexpected circumstances during the minting process, a handful of these coins were struck with errors that slipped through unnoticed. And among these, a specific type of error has made certain 1998 p Kennedy half dollars extremely valuable in the world of numismatics. We're talking about wrong planchet errors, coins that were mistakenly struck on planchets meant for other denominations, like foreign coins or silver issues. Imagine a Kennedy half dollar that was supposed to be made of the usual clad material, but instead, was struck on a leftover silver planchet from a proof coin. Or even one meant for a different US coin altogether. These kinds of minting mistakes are not only rare, they're basically 1 in a million. They aren't supposed to happen, and when they do, most get caught during quality control. But occasionally, a few manage to slip past inspectors and make their way into circulation. And when collectors discover them years later, the value skyrockets. But errors aren't the only thing that make the 1998 p Kennedy half dollar special. Condition is everything in the coin world. Most coins, even those fresh from the mint, get scratched, scuffed, or worn over time. But every now and then, a coin is found in pristine, untouched, nearly perfect condition. We're talking MS-68 or MS-69 grades, the kind of quality that is almost unheard of for a business strike coin from the late 90s. Now, combine that level of perfection with a minting error, especially one involving a silver planchet or an off-metal strike, and you've got something incredibly special. A coin that doesn't just tell a story, but rewrites the book on modern collectibles. It's not just coin collectors who care about this. Investors, historians, and even people with a curiosity for rare objects have entered bidding wars for coins like these, because they're not just money, they're time capsules. They're physical proof that even in a world run by machines and systems, human error and a little bit of mystery can still slip through and create something remarkable. And now here's where it gets exciting. Point one of these rare 1998 p Kennedy half dollars, believed to be struck on the wrong planchet and preserved in flawless condition, was carefully examined, authenticated, and eventually brought to auction. What happened next shocked even seasoned collectors. The bidding started low, but it didn't stay there for long. Collectors knew what they were looking at. This wasn't just a half dollar. This was a minting anomaly, a historical accident, and a collector's dream all rolled into one. By the time the gavel fell, the final sale price was absolutely stunning. That single 1998 p Kennedy half dollar sold for $53,000. Yes, $53,000 for a coin that millions would have passed over without a second thought. So the big question is, do you have one? If you've got a 1998 Kennedy half dollar with a P mint mark, pull it out. Look at the edge. Does it have the standard copper core, or does it look like solid silver? Weigh it, if you can. Check for sharp, unusually proof-like details. And if something seems off or too perfect, get it checked out. You could be holding a small fortune without even realizing it. Coin collecting isn't just a hobby, it's a hunt. A mystery. A search for value in the places we least expect. And sometimes, what seems ordinary turns out to be extraordinary. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the rare world of the 1998 p Kennedy half dollar. If you loved this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss another hidden treasure from America's rich coin history. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and happy collecting.